The Battlefield 6 team recently released update 1130, the Winter Offensive, and it brought some major changes to vehicles, tanks specifically. A lot of players haven't picked up on this yet, but tank armor and damage zones were significantly adjusted. So, if you play engineer and your main job is dealing with enemy vehicles, especially now the attackers get 3 tanks in breakthrough, this is something you really need to know. So let's go ahead and break down the updated tank weak spots and where you should actually be aiming after the latest update. Tanks used to have some crazy weak spots that would cause an insane amount of damage, sometimes 600 to 700 damage out of total of 1000 HP. Well, that's no longer the case after this update. Tank parts now behave much more like intended damage zones. The front of the tank, whether you're hitting the body, the turret, or even the cannon, is now the strongest and most armored area. The sides of the tank body or turret come in as the second weakest areas. The rear of the tank body is by far the weakest spot, as you would expect it. The back of the turret is about as weak as the sides, while the back of the gunner position is actually almost as strong as the front side of the turret, which is sometimes a lot of players don't realize. Another important change is the tracks. They're not as weak as they used to be, and the damage you deal now depends a lot on where you hit them. Shots to the front part of the tracks do the least amount of damage. That's the toughest section, while hitting the rear position of the tracks does noticeably more damage. So even with the tracks, angle and positioning matter a lot more after this update. So let's go ahead and break down the damage zones. Starting with the big tanks. The front track is around 200, the center front is 200, and the center turret is 200 as well. The front gunner is 186. Moving to the side armor, this is where damage jumps up. If you get a clean 90-degree shot, does about 346 to 352 damage. If you're shooting at an angle, it drops a bit. So realistically, you're looking at an average of around 350. The side of the turret does have the same damage, right around 350, whether you hit it at the center or the edges. And if you hit the side of the gunner, it's still at 186. If we move to the rear, things get more interesting. The rear of the gunner is still 186. The center rear, which is actually the most armored part of the rear, takes about 475 to 500 damage. The side sections of the rear are actually weaker. Those hit for about 594, almost 600 damage. The lower rear plate is also close to 600, and the rear tracks hit for about 600 damage as well. The rear of the turret is back down to 350, the same as the sides. And these numbers, by the way, are consistent across both big tanks. Moving on to the smaller tanks, the Bradley and the STRF. On the front, damage is noticeably higher than big tanks. The center front is a 300, the front gunner position is a 300, the front optic or scope is also 300, the front turret is a 300, and even the front track hits for 300. The side of the body does about 475 to 480 damage, and the number is consistent across the entire side. The side turret takes the same damage as the side body, no difference there. And of course at the rear, damage peaks. The center rear does about 594 to 600 damage. The rear tracks are also around 594. The rear turret comes in slightly lower, between 460 and 480 damage. And of course these values are the same across both small tanks. One last thing worth mentioning, if you hit the tracks from the side on big tanks, you're looking at about 350 damage per hit. As for the top armor on big tanks, it's about 350 damage across the board, whether you're hitting the hatch or the scope. This used to be a very weak spot in the past and used to give critical shots most of the time. The same goes for the gunner. Used to be critical shots if you hit the gunner from the back, but it's not the case anymore. As far as the top armor, small tanks are different though. Hitting the top of small tanks can deal up to 480 damage in a single shot. So collectively, the recommended spots to shoot, assuming it's a perfect shot, i.e. 90-degree angle, for big tanks, number 1 is the sides of the rear. You need 2 shots to kill. Number 2 is the sides of the tank. You need 3 shots to kill. Number 3, the top of the turret as the third preferred spot, and you need 3 shots to kill. As for small tanks, number 1, the center rear, you need 2 shots to kill, and number 2, anywhere else, you need 3 shots to kill. And that's pretty much it for the damage zones. Make sure you actually know these, because things have definitely changed after the update. And like I said, this is especially important right now because breakthrough mode gives the attackers 3 tanks. So if you're playing engineer on the defending team, this information is really for you. But we're not done yet. I want to share a few tips and tricks that will help you deal the most damage possible to enemy tanks in your game. First, if you can't get a clean shot on the preferred third weak spots we talked about earlier, the common sense move is to shoot anywhere you can, and that's not wrong. Just keep in mind that the chances of completely destroying the tank are much lower. Second, when you're dealing with a fast moving tanks, it's usually better to aim toward the front. With their movement and the travel speed of the RPG, you're more likely to land a clean hit toward the center. Not because it does more damage, but because it gives you a better chance of getting that 90-degree angle, which is what allows you to hit for around 350 damage. Third, when it comes to small tanks, don't overthink it. Shoot wherever you can. Their front armor specifically is much weaker compared to big tanks, so any solid hit is going to be effective. Number 4, always choose the anti-armor specialist for engineer instead of the combat engineer if your goal is to take out enemy vehicles. This loadout gives you 2 extra RPG rockets, meaning you will have 5 rockets instead of 3. On top of that, when you damage an enemy tank, its repair effectiveness is reduced by 50% for 10 seconds, which creates a crucial window where you can land another rocket before they have a chance to fully repair. And that follow-up shot can easily be the one that finishes the tank. Number 5, you also don't need to get right up close to the tanks to deal damage. The RPG's damage range is actually very solid, and you will do the same damage at around 100 meters as you would at 300 meters. So as long as you can land the shot, distance isn't really the limiting factor, and you can stay safer while still putting serious pressure on enemy vehicles. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. I hope this will help you better understand the tank damage zones after the update. If you guys have any questions or if there's anything that I missed that you would like to add, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Your support really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.